Oh, it's a video?
Yeah, can we look formal?
Yeah, very.
Okay, nice.
You do a little intro for the video?
Yeah.
About St. Abbs?
Yeah. Today we are visiting St. Abbs Lighthouse.
The first lighthouse on our Scottish lighthouse tour was St. Abbs Head Lighthouse. It was a short walk from St. Abbs Head. It was 30 minutes there and 30 minutes back. But if you have problems with mobility, you can drive right up to the lighthouse. You just have to ask permission.
This is St. Abbs Lighthouse, which was built and operational by 1862 after the shipwreck of the Martello in 1857 prompted the need for a lighthouse here. This lighthouse was built by the Stevenson brothers, who were the father and uncle of Robert Stevenson, who was the author of Treasure Island.
The next lighthouse on the stop was Bass Rock Lighthouse, a beautiful little lighthouse set into a rock off the shore.
This is Bass Rock Lighthouse, which was built by David Stevenson, who was Robert Louis Stevenson's cousin. This is the author of Treasure Island. Now, if you want to come and see this lighthouse, the best spot to do it is probably on this private beach, which is next to Drift Coffee. This is Girdle Ness Lighthouse. This was built after a whaler ship went down just in the port of Aberdeen over there. There were 44 people on board and only 2 survived. The crew were drunk and incapable, which is what led to the crash, but it did call for the building of this lighthouse. This lighthouse was built by another one of the Stevenson family, which built a whole bunch of the lighthouses across this area of Scotland. If you want to come and see this lighthouse, the best way to see it is to walk through the golf course, and you've got some amazing views over Aberdeen.
Petitions were received by the commissioners in 1819 from the magistrates, town councils and harbour trustees of Peterhead to have a lighthouse erected on Buchan Ness or another suitable part of the coast. Robert Stevenson, engineer to the board and grandfather of Robert Louis Stevenson, surveyed the area and decided on the present position of Bodham village. It wasn't until 1827 that the light was first exhibited. John Gibb of Aberdeen was the contractor responsible for building the lighthouse, and the red bands were added in 1907 to distinguish it as a day mark.
Ready?
Yeah. Nice. Every lighthouse has a unique character. That's the amount of flashes or the colour of flashes, so that seafarers can tell which lighthouse they're next to. At Rattray Head, that's 3 flashes every 30 seconds. An absolute unexpected gem of this trip was Scotland's Lighthouse Museum. In this museum, if you go along, you can head on one of their tours and go into Kinnaird Head Lighthouse itself. This was the first lighthouse ever built in Scotland, and it's pretty incredible. It was built into a 16th century castle, which means it's a super interesting shape with all of these rooms coming off the main tower. The guide will also show you how the light used to work, but this lighthouse is now decommissioned and there's a new one next to it. After another long drive, we made it to Strathy Point Lighthouse, where we actually stayed the night. It took over 50 years for this lighthouse to be built, from the first proposal to its eventual lighting in 1958. It ended up being the last traditional manned lighthouse built in Scotland, and the first Scottish lighthouse to be built as an all-electric station. There's a lot of accommodation at this lighthouse as well. There was room for 3 keepers, their families, and an occasional keeper. If you do go and stay, which I recommend doing, you'll be able to see some lovely sheep who come over the hills in the morning, but make sure you keep the gate closed.
This is Stour Head Lighthouse, which is one of the 90+ lighthouses that the Stevenson family built up here in Scotland. This one was built in 1870 and stands at only 13 metres tall, and its character is it flashes white once every 15 seconds. It's also available to be rented by one lucky person.
This is a pretty accessible lighthouse if you can't walk too far or you don't want to. You can park right up next to the lighthouse and have a look at it from there. If you do fancy a walk though, you can trek up the adjacent hill to see the former bite, stable, cow shed, pig house and cart shed nearby. The keepers were pretty isolated here, so they had to be pretty self-sufficient. Our penultimate stop on this lighthouse tour was Coram Point Lighthouse, which was such a special spot. I feel like most of my life is just spent gushing about lighthouses, but this one was particularly special. There's a lovely estuary alongside, which is perfect for a little dip, and lots of sheep running around guarding the lighthouse. This is also a very momentous lighthouse. It was one of the first lighthouses in Britain to become automatic in 1898, approximately 10 years before any lighthouses in England. It's also built by the Stevensons, and it has a very pretty tower with the glass being red and green. And thus, with a beautiful sunset and a final lighthouse, this was the last night of our trip. This lighthouse was first lit in 1873, and unfortunately Donald Trump has purchased the golf course right next to it. If you want to avoid this golf course, you can access it along the Ayrshire coastal path. It's a very beautiful lighthouse, so it is a shame about the golf course. Thank you for joining me, Lighthouse Explorer. If you're interested in more regular content, we do have a podcast which gets updated weekly, as well as a TikTok page where I try and post every single day. But I will see you soon for the next lighthouse.